Good morning, my loves. So I wanted to take a minute to talk about the difference between 2 and 4 in numerology. There are some similar undertones here. There are. Because when we're talking about 2, we are talking about a relational energy. We're talking about belief systems. We're talking about value systems. We're talking about the inner child. We're talking about worldviews. When we talk about 4, however, it is a double up of that energy. And we're getting into perspective. If you want to understand an arena that's governed by 4, we're talking about journalism, media, and politics. Now, if you can guess, something's inspiring this video, and it's waking up to news that I didn't care for. But I want to talk a little bit about how 2 influences 4 decisions. In other words, how our belief systems, how our own inner child wounding and trauma and experiences contributes to the ongoings we wish to see in the political realm, even if it may be confusing to others. So let's get into it. When you understand someone's 2 relative to their 4, when we're speaking of politics, it's easier to express compassion or understanding toward others, even if they acted in a way you don't agree with. What are their motivations? What are their values? What are their fears? What are their own wounds and experiences that have caused them to look past certain things from this candidate with the hopes of the possibility of certain other things coming to fruition, which is something that they feel that they need? Let me stop being so abstract and give you an example personally from my own perspective, my own life. Now, one of the biggest fears that women in my life are facing right now is the removal of reproductive rights. If you're someone that is familiar with me, you know that I am in no way pro-abortion, but I am actually pro-choice. This might not always be clear because of the strength of my 2. The darkness my 2 can exude, right? My spiritual belief systems, my own trauma. Okay. With that being said, let me elaborate even more. When you have certain personal experiences contributing to your worldview, you need to also make sure you have perspective for. More specifically, speaking of 2, my abortion wounded me, traumatized me. It was the most horrific experience of my life. Led me to addiction, worsened my addictions, harmed me immensely, filled me with guilt, a guilt that doesn't ever fully go away. Do you understand? Plus my spiritual belief systems, very occult, very energetic, emotion and emotional frequency based. So if you understand all of that, you would understand how someone like me does not agree with abortion. But let's get into why I am pro-choice because of my 4. Why pro-choice is important, even if you are not pro-abortion, even if you are anti-abortion, such as me. Why pro-choice is important is because what does that polarity look like in this country if you no longer allow women to make that decision? More narcissists, more sociopaths, because more childhood trauma. If a woman doesn't want children and you force her to, she's going to go gallivant. She's going to neglect them. Do you understand? You understand? Some may grow on the occasion, right? But that's a tall order there. That's a tall order. More children, someone brought this to my attention, more children being sold into child trafficking. it's not strangers typically that take your kids. It's family members that sell them into the industry. Now, combining my 4 and my 2, I think parameters should be placed on it. I think that excessive allowing an excessive number of abortions is not okay, because when you encounter these people, there is an emotional detachment. There is issue there. There is mental health issues that take place, right? Whether they were present before or not, it worsens it. I've encountered it. And yeah. And as a former substance use disorder counselor, I've talked to many people about this. And it is a common thread, and it is a common wound, and it is a common trauma that can keep people stuck in addiction. So putting parameters on it, not allowing people to do it over and over again, making sure they understand the potential emotional ramifications, ramping up, and I mean ramping up immensely, sex education efforts for children in schools. And I also do not care for allowing abortion after a certain period of time. When you are actually so far along that you are required to actually give birth to the child and then they terminate the life, I think that is completely not appropriate. I'm sorry, and I'm not going to apologize for that perspective. It becomes a lot harder to release that guilt or release that trauma. And it becomes a lot harder to distance yourself from the M word that ends with ER. Okay. So, with that being said, do you understand where I'm going with the difference between 4 and 2? And how if you overlap 4 and 2 with wisdom, this is your highest perspective. So no matter what happens going forward, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid, okay? We must move mindfully. And if we have to leave the country, we will. Make sure you stay on your birth control if you're afraid of that, and just be mindful. Everything's an opportunity for growth anyway. Right? We should be more mindful about who we sleep with anyway. We need to be more comfortable talking about the possibility of getting pregnant with someone right away anyway. Because it's a reality. It is the reality. But just wanted to share that. The difference between 2 and 4 in numerology as it relates to politics. And how 2 should not be your driving force when making political decisions.